Hey everybody, happy Friday. Hopefully everybody's wrapping up their week on a positive and productive footing. And it's me, JJ, here again for the Asus PCDIY live stream show. It's Friday, so we've got a couple of different things to talk about and some pretty big ones. Some really big and exciting announcements, I think, overall, just in regards to PCDIY, especially with the formal launch of Windows 11, as well as I think a certain graphics card that I think has really kind of had a lot of discussion around the community a little bit before when it may or may have not leaked. And then, of course, now along with the formal announcement with our brand new, essentially collaborative edition that we have with the Asus Noctua 37 RTX series graphics card. So we're going to be definitely talking about Windows 11 first and foremost. We'll actually be having a dedicated live stream specifically for the Noctua Edition series graphics card next week, as well as, of course, for some of these sweet peripherals that you see here in front of me for our Moonlight White series that we've talked about in some of our prior streams. So if you guys are definitely interested in that, you guys want to make sure to go ahead and keep following us essentially on Facebook, on YouTube, wherever you're checking us out. And if you're not, then make sure to just check out our social media channels and you'll be kept up to date as soon as essentially we let you guys know when you're going to be seeing those streams. Hey, Carl, thanks for stopping by. Yeah, definitely. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are super interested in being able to pick up one of those cards once we actually push it out a little bit later, in October. Definitely, with GPUs, it's going to be a consistent kind of process to be able to try to make sure that you can stay ahead in terms of trying to pick up one of those cards. But we are definitely going to be working with channel partners, just like all of our entire series graphics cards, whether it's the RG Strict series, Tough Gaming series, KO series, or Dual series, as well as now this Noctua series, to be able to get those cards out there. And hopefully you guys will be able to pick one up. And looking forward to hopefully you guys being able to drop one of these in a really cool looking build, and love to see you guys drop those builds in our PCDIY Facebook group. So if you guys aren't part of that group, link is in the description. I'll go ahead and drop a link to it in the chat as well. But it's a great community that we have. I help to run it. You can really pretty much find out anything that is happening when it comes to Asus's hardware. And if you have kind of questions, you're looking for insights, you're just looking for maybe some guidance in terms of upgrading or a build, feel free to go ahead and drop in there and drop your questions. So let me go ahead and get ready to kick things off. Hey man, hey Connor, happy to have you here, man. Happy Friday as well. Hey Erica, thanks for joining the stream. Happy to have you here as well. All right, guys. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Windows 11, right? This is probably the really big thing that's happened recently, and really with this week, of course, the launch has kind of been working up until this release date that happened this week. And for a lot of people, they had already kind of started out and trying out Windows Insiders builds, or maybe working on trying, release candidate builds or maybe beta builds. But now we've got the formal, what's referred to as the RTM, the final release build has now been actually pushed out. And so I just essentially want to give you guys a couple of kind of maybe interesting insights and some things to keep in mind if you're going to be looking to maybe build a system around Windows 11, and some items that you're going to want to keep in mind. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about kind of general, I'd say, system requirements, interoperability, and compatibility, and what you're going to essentially want to keep in mind. Now, over the last few months, Asus has, of course, been at the forefront of making sure that we roll out extensive UEFI BIOS support. This is essentially the firmware for your motherboard, and this helps to ensure that kind of when you're going through the installation process, that you don't have to go about configuring a lot of different types of parameters within the UEFI BIOS environment. Essentially, it will allow for kind of a seamless installation experience. And pretty much for the most part, all the motherboards have received these Windows 11 updates, although we are still trickling in a couple of last series of boards to get this update. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the corresponding page and kind of link the page in the chat too, if you guys kind of want to keep in mind what you're going to need to know when it comes to this. I also strongly recommend, again, consider joining our PCDIY Facebook group. I've got an extensive kind of announcement post that puts in all the kind of key information you want to keep in mind in relation to the UEFI BIOS, as well as another critical part, which could potentially be your drivers, which is still something that we're still waiting on in terms of getting kind of a complete set of driver set for not only things like motherboards, but for other types of devices that may be contingent on not utilizing what's referred to as a Windows in-the-box driver. So let me go ahead and first and foremost pull up this page for you guys, and kind of will bring things up from there. So give me 1 second here. All right, and let me share my screen with you guys. Okay, here we go. Okay, great. All right, guys, and give me 1 second here. And there we go. Okay, so you guys can see right here that we've got the Windows 11 kind of website here. And When you take a look through it, you'll see kind of a lot of the key information that you're looking for in terms of what might be relevant to you from kind of an upgrade perspective. Pretty much it tells you right there, hey, here's the latest BIOS or the latest UEFI. You can see it broken down between Intel and AMD platforms. There's also some configuration information because Windows, to be able to enhance the overall security experience, has gone ahead and defined that there's a requirement for what's referred to as a native UEFI boot. Part of this is because Windows is now under Windows 11 transition to a native full 64-bit and full native UEFI essentially base. This is different than in the past where they used to have 64-bit and 32-bit, and they also allowed for a legacy essentially boot environment. But now to be able to ensure, I think, not only the best experience, but also a better security, they've gone ahead and transitioned this. And when we set up essentially our UEFI parameters in the BIOS, historically, we wanted to be able to, of course, maintain interoperability and compatibility and allow for installation experience, whether you're going to be installing, let's say, Windows 8 at a time, or maybe now Windows 10, and now moving into Windows 11. But moving into Windows 11, this does require a different foundation. And this is the reason why you will see for corresponding models that we may have what's referred to as a Windows 11 UEFI. This doesn't mean that if you don't have the UEFI that you can't support Windows 11. It just means that you're going to have to definitely manually go in and make changes. You'll see then all the different models that we have that essentially have had this UEFI BIOS made available. You can click the button, download it, and you're pretty much good to go. It's a very simple process. There are a couple of things, though, that you do want to keep in mind. The first thing is that if you've already installed Windows 10 and you did not set it up in the optimal configuration, and what I mean by that is disabling CSM and natively having a what's called GPT Windows installation, you are going to actually have to go through some additional work. You'll actually have to go through a conversion process to convert what's called your partition table, so that when you make these settings, you could then actually go through the normal upgrade process. If not, you actually will not be successful in terms of being able to go through the upgrade process. A lot of this has been detailed, again, in the announcement post that I have, and because it's a little bit more complex, I strongly recommend, again, you guys checking out the post that we have in our group to give you a little bit more insight into that. I will say, though, that generally my recommendation historically for the best kind of experience when it comes to the stability, the performance, and just overall experience, I generally recommend a clean install, not an upgrade installation, especially if you've had your Windows release maybe for multiple years and it's gone through multiple what I refer to as like milestone upgrades, so really big kind of updates for the operating system. I do recommend a clean installation. So ultimately, those are kind of a couple of key things to keep in mind before I kind of talk about some maybe the cool things that are maybe under the hood. I know a lot of people have probably talked about a lot of the UI elements and things like that, but I think there's some interesting things that we want to keep in mind too that are really interesting for the future that are coming in Windows 11. Let me go ahead and see here. Hi, JJ. Awesome, man. Hey, yeah, thanks for that feedback, Richard. Yeah, I'm really excited about that Noctua series graphics card. It's something that I actually helped to kind of pitch to our team, and I've been really happy that we've been able to actually work on this card in collaboration with Noctua. It actually started over a year ago in terms of the design and development for the card, and so we're really excited to kind of continue this innovation history that we have. It really does up developing not only, I think, unique and innovative designs, but designs that really have kind of a usability and a functionality that the community is looking for. And our mantra really on graphics cards has always been cooler, quieter, and faster. And definitely with this card, you get not only a very fast card, but extremely quiet card. It's quite impressive that really when you look at the performance metrics, even media and some users and our normal cards were already very, very quiet, really class leading in that regard. They're going to find it hard to even be testing because they might not even have sensitive enough equipment that actually they would be able to actually measure it, because especially when you talk about the RPM range for the fan, it's probably only going to be around like this is, of course, not the Noctua base card, but, traditionally you'll probably say these fans maybe are like in the 1200 to 800 RPM. That card very regularly is going to be operating, sub 1000 RPM, maybe 900 RPM. That's essentially pretty much almost inaudible. So it's a really, really sweet card. So now let me go ahead and first off, let me link this in the chat for you guys. If you guys want to just check out a little bit more regarding all the different motherboards and everything that we've got going on for Windows 11, there you guys can check that link out. And I will also go ahead and drop a link for you guys that are interested in checking out our group, and where you can see more information regarding that announcement post that I talked about. All right, guys. So there's a link in the group as well. Now, one other thing that I do want to keep in mind before we get to, I think, a very important part, which is going to be drivers and kind of some aspects that you're going to want to keep in mind here in terms of Windows 11, is going to be also that AMD has already gone ahead and actually made an announcement regarding actually Windows 11 and just some performance analysis. And I'm sure this is going to get resolved very shortly. AMD is already working with Microsoft in this regard, but I know that we have many users that are, of course, currently running Ryzen-based platforms. So whether you're on a B series chipset or whether you're running an X series chipset, whatever it might be, you do want to keep in mind that AMD has gone ahead and made a small announcement regarding this. So I'll go ahead and just link this for you guys here, and I'll link it also in the chat. But essentially, it's just letting you know that there could be essentially a reduction in performance. I think from an overall usability perspective, you're probably not going to really notice this too much, but if you're somebody that's super critically looking at the performance in certain, let's say, game scenarios, you might notice potentially lower performance. So it's important to keep this in mind. So they are kind of looking to help to improve this through a hotfix and just an update, but it is just something to kind of keep in mind. Not again a critical, I think, item, but again something to kind of keep in mind. Now, the next part that I do want to talk about here is going to be that when you generally upgrade to a new operating system, outside of the operating system itself, you generally have software that you install, and the software is going to be generally what's called your driver set. So you can have drivers for what is referred to as the chipset. So that's generally going to be kind of the motherboard. You can have, of course, drivers for the LAN, for the Wi-Fi, for the Bluetooth, potentially for USB, for storage devices, things like NVMe-based drives. Some of these things will actually require drivers. Now, there are going to be some devices that, especially as you get to newer operating systems, we saw this when we transitioned, let's say, from like Windows 8 to Windows 10, you had certain inbox drivers that took over. An example of this is Intel previously used to offer what was called a specialized turbo driver, and through essentially work with Microsoft, it essentially got eliminated, and that was handled directly within the operating system. But still, traditionally, you would usually have 3 drivers, take for instance on an Intel platform: one for the chipset, one for the MEI firmware, which would be in coordination for the CPU, and another one that was called the RST storage driver, which would generally be for like your storage devices. Okay, and as of right now, we still do not have a full set of Windows 11 drivers for your corresponding, let's say, motherboards. So this doesn't mean that if you don't go about in the installation that let's say your board and your system won't be running. We do actually have already many users that are already running, and generally without any issues, but you're generally going to be relying on what's referred to as an inbox driver. These are drivers that Microsoft has already essentially integrated within the operating system, and essentially kind of just plug and play, it works. But these may not offer the best kind of functionality. There may be certain reduced levels of functions or features. An example, let's say your audio may work, but when you have a specialized driver that's been designed by the actual driver manufacturer and also has certain kind of hooks built into it, there might be more functions or features that the formal complete driver will offer. So what does this ultimately look like? Let me go ahead and actually show you guys an example just so you really kind of understand what I'm talking about here. So give me 1 second. So what I've gone ahead and done here is I'm just going to pull up a page for, let's say, a popular motherboard that we have on, let's say, Z590 chipset, although this would still be the same essentially for any one of the current chipsets, okay? So if you're on AMD, it would be the same. If you were on Intel, it doesn't matter. So here you can see we've got the Maximus 13 Hero. This is a Z590 based motherboard. Normally, when you complete the installation of your operating system, what you would do is you'd head over to support here. And once you head over to support, you go to drivers and utilities, and then you would see select OS. And as you see right here, there's no option yet for Windows 11. Now, part of this is because under Windows 11, there has been a change in terms of what's called the drivers. The drivers are now moving over to something called DCH-based drivers. This is a definite benefit. It's going to actually improve in overall stability and quite a number of other elements. And I'm very excited to actually see this transition to DCH-based drivers. And the industry as a whole has kind of been working to already implement kind of these background changes, but it does take time. So as we kind of get these updates from different corresponding partners, as an example, it could be a LAN driver, wireless driver, chipset driver, audio driver, all these drivers, you will eventually see a tab right here that says Windows 11, and then you will be able to download your corresponding set of drivers. This is also generally going to be a requirement, not necessarily always, but it will be a requirement for some utilities. So if we go down here, you can see that we have many utilities that sometimes get shipped with our motherboards. So an example is this motherboard comes with antivirus software, has our AI Suite software, also comes with Rare Lab, a game first packet priority software, RAM cache software, and there's also, of course, our Armory Crate software, AI charger. So there's quite a number of different utilities. Ideally, those utilities should also be validated and aligned for Windows 11. Now, applications, Microsoft has done a lot of interoperability testing. So for the most part, you will generally find that pretty much most applications that worked under Windows 10 will work under Windows 11. But I generally recommend that usually for utilities which are a bit more complex and sometimes have special coordination with certain type of onboard controllers on the motherboard and things like that, you wait for a validated version that's been designed for the operating system and validated for the operating system, just so that it helps to ensure the best experience. Let me just see there if we got any questions right there, guys. Hey, Daniel, if your question was regarding are there actually going to be any available in terms of 3070s? Yes, of course. It's just like, our 30 series graphics cards right now. We have them available. We have many users that right now have them. You can check out our PCDIY group. We've got users consistently posting about their new different builds. Of course, in terms of the market condition, it is definitely a challenge. There are considerations in terms of how you have to go about trying to be able to get the card and being very conscious about looking at different types of e-tailers, being proactive at looking at listings and kind of working along those regards. But we are actively going to be working to make sure that we can put out these cards in terms of channel distribution. And it won't be what we refer to as a limited release. So an example is if we go back a little bit to our Gundam series graphics cards, those were a limited production run. So essentially that just means that we released those for a finite period of time. They weren't going to be produced pretty much in a normal life cycle. All right. But this Noctua series card is going to be just pretty much like our standard ROG Strix cards or Tough Gaming cards or our Dual or our KO series. So pretty much they will be offered until we get to a point that we would go through like a normal refresh and essentially reset the different GPUs that we would be offering, which generally only occurs when we go through like a GPU refresh cycle. All right. Hopefully that answers your question right there. Yeah, so good to hear that you're running on the beta without any kind of issues. Again, like I said, it does depend on what you're kind of doing. It does also depend on your hardware requirements. Not every user is going to have the same exact experience. An example with a board like this that you have with the Crosshair Extreme, this has a 10 gigabit LAN controller. It has Wi-Fi 6E on board, which is a specialized driver that you have to have upgraded, even though Windows 11 is certified for Wi-Fi 6E, and it's the only OS that's certified for Wi-Fi 6E. There are definitely going to be drivers that are specifically tuned and optimized for certain hardware packages. So it is ultimately a balancing act that if you decide that you do want to transition, you do want to keep in mind that right now, essentially, you're going to be transitioning to an experience that may be functional, but it might not necessarily be fully optimized until we get the full driver set that's coming in. Once we, of course, have that full driver set, we will start letting our users know via here on the PCDIY stream, through our social media channels, and we'll probably actually do a dedicated live stream to show actually how to go about the entire Windows installation experience, how to get everything kind of set up and tweaked and tuned. The last thing that I do also want to note, just kind of in general in terms of Windows 11 here too, and it might be one that you might not necessarily think about, but if you are actually running an overclocked configuration on your system, you may potentially actually want to revert it back to a stock value. The main reason being is that there are changes that fundamentally occur between the operating system in terms of how loading policies work, even different types of instruction set utilizations. And you can actually find that from one OS environment to another OS environment, overclocking experience can actually change. It could maybe actually become better, but historically, I generally find that it doesn't become better, generally because newer operating systems tend to be more advanced in terms of the number of instruction sets that they utilize. It actually tends to be that usually the overclock becomes even a little bit more stressed. So it may need to be potentially retuned to be stable for that OS environment. So generally, I don't recommend kind of taking that overclock and migrating it over to a new OS, especially because you're going over to a new OS and you don't know what may potentially cause an issue, like a point of instability. This is why I do recommend reset everything to stock, to defaults, go through the installation experience, give yourself probably at least a few days, if not a week, to run the system at those values, make sure that everything's running smoothly. And then from there, you can go ahead and redefine your overclock based on your previous values so that you have kind of like a baseline to work from. You could check it then at that point to see if it's stable. And if it is, great. If not, you then may need to go about kind of tweaking or tuning it a little bit so that it is stable under that new operating system environment. All right. Sorry, so hold on, let me see here. We got a question right there. Is the driver package going to be available for Windows 11 on the Asus support type? Yes. So yes, Connor, yeah, that's actually just what I talked about, right? When I showed kind of the website and everything like that. So yes, for kind of like an example for Z590 motherboards or for X570 series motherboards, those motherboards, once we essentially get all the corresponding support from Intel, from AMD, from Marvell, from Realtek, from any one of the partners that actually are the ones that are coding and developing the drivers, and then they pass our internal validation, we will then officially list those and update those onto the support site so that you can download those drivers directly from our website. So you won't need to go to like Intel's website. You don't need to go to Realtek's website. And in some scenarios, you actually may not want to because the drivers may be specifically tuned in terms of certain parameters for the board in question. So actually, ideally for some drivers, you do want to download those directly from our support site. But those will be listed on the support website for Asus. All right. Oh yeah. Hey Mike, no problem. Yeah, let me go ahead and link this in the group for you guys. That's no problem. Give me 1 second. Mike from our group's just asking me to make sure that I share the stream in there. So give me 1 second and I will do that. Okay. All right. Should be linked there, Mike. Hopefully that should be okay. All right, guys. Hey, Alan, happy to have you here. Thanks for joining the stream. So that pretty much, I think, recaps most of the key items that essentially you want to keep in mind when we're talking about kind of those upgrade consideration for Windows 11. So just as kind of a general, again, recap on those items that I've kind of pointed out. One, ideally, you want to make sure to check your motherboard and see if it has that UEFI BIOS available. Update it so that essentially the baseline parameters have been set. Two, if you are essentially going to be upgrading, but you had your motherboard set in a legacy environment, you're going to have to go through a lot more work. You're going to have to go through a partition conversion tool. We have that posted in the group so that you can actually change your partition to be able to support a native UEFI, essentially booting environment, and then you can complete the upgrade. Three, though, I generally do not recommend upgrades. I generally recommend a clean installation. Four, the other point is going to be that we don't yet have official driver sets available, but they will be coming soon, and then they will be listed on our support website. This does not mean, though, that you will not be able to go install Windows 11 on the motherboards. It just essentially means that you may not see optimized driver packages for things that like your networking or your audio or for your chipset for other items. You're essentially going to be relying on inbox-based drivers. As of right now, pretty much the only Windows 11 drivers that have currently been issued have been from GPU partners, so you can get Windows 11 drivers specifically for Intel graphics, for AMD-based graphics, and for NVIDIA-based graphics solutions. Beyond that, we're going to have to wait essentially a little bit until we get those driver set. And then point five is that if you do have an AMD platform, just be aware that Microsoft is working currently with AMD on a kind of a software update to help to essentially maximize performance for AMD-based enabled platforms. So that covers pretty much, I think, most of those key items that I wanted to go through. The last items that I wanted to touch on are kind of a couple of just cool things that maybe you might find interesting in terms of some items that Microsoft is actually doing here with Windows 11. So one of them is pretty cool, and it's something that's called foreground prioritization. So historically, like when you're running a lot of different applications and you had a lot of CPU utilization, you might have essentially noticed that you might get slowdown between kind of going from one application to another application. But what Windows is doing now is essentially a lot more intelligent. Essentially, if things are minimized, but they still may be utilizing quote unquote a heavy level of CPU utilization, but they're not in the foreground, they won't essentially be prioritized in the same way. Essentially foreground based items. So if you were to bring up your browser, or you were to bring up an email client, or you bring up something, even though there's a lot of CPU use, it will still maintain a high level of kind of responsiveness or snappiness to the experience. This is kind of one of the things that you really kind of have to go through and try and experience it, but it's quite impressive in terms of what Microsoft and the Windows team have done there to be able to improve kind of the fluidity, especially when you're heavily utilizing your system. So that, I think, is a pretty cool update. Another one is some changes that they've also made in terms of kind of the boot experience and how things work in terms of kind of sleep and resume and hibernation. So S3 is kind of the most common form of kind of sleep, right? And that's where your RAM still has power, and then a lot of the other devices get powered down. But one of the really cool things that Microsoft did here is kind of reorganize in terms of how threads to the processor, right? So the threads that you have active are essentially prioritized and kept on. And what this allows for is that if you're somebody that really does use sleep a lot in your system, you'll notice that sleep is going to be a lot faster in terms of resuming from that essentially sleep state to kicking back on, and even kind of applications almost immediately kind of just kicking back on. You'll see this, especially if you're somebody that uses like a logon screen and you do things like Windows Hello, or you have biometric logins or anything like that, or even just, like I said, coming out from sleep. It's going to seem a lot more responsive and a lot more snappy. So again, this is a usability item, and it's one of those things you might not kind of think, oh, it's a big deal, but depending on how often you have your system to kind of sleep, like for me, I do have my system set to timeout pretty quickly. So on one of them coming back, it's really nice to be able to just see that resume experience be really, really quick and really, really smooth. So that's pretty cool. They've implemented quite a bit more compression-based technology in terms of kind of the updates that get packed in through Windows. Much more intelligent-based updating, so you should actually see improvements not only in terms of the time it takes to install updates, but to download them as well. This is pretty cool, intelligent, that they essentially are now kind of taking a granular kind of mechanism to look at essentially what files are already present on the system, and then are what specifically just the files they need to just download, as opposed to downloading the entire file. So especially for systems that might have smaller kind of SSD arrays, or where you don't necessarily want to kind of take up as much space, this is going to be, I think, valuable. So that's another kind of pretty cool item right there. I talked about also that the system is, of course, solely now 64-bit, solely UEFI based, which is pretty cool. The transition to DCH-based drivers, which I think is going to be a big one. This should be also a big improvement in terms of stability of drivers. So a lot of people sometimes historically have had issues with sometimes drivers causing kind of points of concern and kind of crashes in the system. Overall, you should see better stability. And from Microsoft's own analysis, they're showing some very impressive numbers in terms of the improvement to stability. Feature updates is pretty cool. So they're now kind of committing to a 1-year cycle for feature updates, which I think is going to be pretty cool from a candidate's perspective. One that we might not immediately realize on the desktop side that I think is going to be kind of maybe more immediately realized on the laptop side is going to be haptic and stylus native integration. So things for like haptic keyboards and stylus integration is going to be kind of cool. Maybe even our peripherals team maybe look to maybe integrate actually like haptic level functionality into a keyboard, or into a mice, or with stylus functionality is going to be pretty interesting in terms of kind of the elements of how you could extend kind of the control experience. I think is going to be pretty sweet. So that's another kind of item in there that they've baked in. And of course, there's a lot of the other really cool stuff that people have talked about, like auto HDR and direct storage and a lot of other things. But those are kind of some under the kind of hood kind of stuff that I've seen that's pretty cool, pretty interesting. Hey, Z4D3. If you can't enable the secure boot, again, what I would recommend is take a look at that Windows 11 page that I linked into the chat. It will take you to the actual primary support page. You want to make sure, like I said, that you have the corresponding UEFI. And then also I put a link there into the PCDIY group where we have a full announcement section that also gives you guidance on actually how to go through the configuration parameters. Keep in mind, again, if you've got a pre-existing installation, but you previously had it with a CSM-based environment, right? So a legacy install, you can't make an automatic conversion. You're going to actually have to go through a conversion process to change your partition table. So there might be some extra work. In almost all the scenarios where I've had people have issues, it's generally because they're trying to do an upgrade and they haven't realized that they have a legacy installation and they need to resolve that issue first. So again, I would take a look at that, and hopefully that should help you to get back up and running and resolve your issues. All right, so I think that covers probably most of what I wanted to cover there. Again, if you guys have any questions or anything like that, I would, again, strongly recommend make sure to kind of check out the group. Look for that announcement post. It's our top pinned announcement post. Actually, I can go ahead and show that to you guys. Give me 1 second here. I will show that to you. Give me 1 second here. Let me bring it up here. That way you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. And I'll also go ahead and share the primary link for those of you that maybe don't want to join our group, but it's a great space in terms of if you're a PC DIY enthusiast. But right here, if you see that we do have our kind of a pinned announcement post, and it kind of goes through all the specifics that you need to keep in mind in terms of like I said, the UEFI updates, the Windows 11 upgrade tool, how you can actually convert your system in terms if you have a legacy partition and you need to convert it to a GPT native UEFI, and FAQ, which goes through a lot of the commonly questioned aspects, how to enable TPM 2.0. If you guys aren't aware, essentially secure boot and TPM is a requirement for Windows 11. And we have a wide range of motherboards that essentially support this through firmware. So it's a special option that you can go in and just kind of click and you can enable. But you do also generally also want to set a native UEFI booting parameter as well. So all of that is kind of linked in there. So you see each one of the links, you can click on it. I detail a couple of other things in there. So you guys can check that out. So I will drop that in the chat if you guys are interested. So give me 1 second here and I will put that again in the chat for you guys. And let me go ahead and actually also just put that TPM link for those that you may potentially need a reference to that, and the the GPT conversion tool. Some of you guys probably might need that as well. So I'll put those in the chat. That's the conversion tool. All right, there you guys go. Hopefully that should help you guys out. All right. Okay, so next things up, got a couple of just kind of announcements I just want to kind of remind you guys on. We've got a couple of still kind of giveaway promotions going on right now. So if you guys are interested in potentially winning some hardware and some pretty sweet hardware at that, you definitely want to take advantage of them. So first up, let's go ahead and talk about RG Rig Reboot, because this is the last day that you can essentially submit entries. So we've been doing this for essentially 5 installments with Linus's team, and it's an exciting opportunity to essentially be able to get an entire system overhauled and built with some awesome Asus hardware along with Linus. And for this year, they are hoping to actually be able to have people come out directly to the LTT headquarters and be able to actually do the filming and the build on site there with them. So that sounds like it's pretty exciting. All you've got to do is pretty much just go through the submission process right here, which it shows you. Just submit pretty much reason why you should get essentially your system rebooted. It's a 30 or 60-second video, right up in between that time frame. You can see kind of the application information right there. You're pretty much good to go. So it's straightforward. I will drop that in the chat right there. But really cool opportunity to win some awesome hardware, right? Just keep in mind, it's only 8 hours left to submit. So you guys better get to it if you guys want to take advantage of it, okay? All right. Next one is going to be our Buff Your Game giveaway. This one's pretty cool because it's actually being run by our global headquarters team. So it is a global-based giveaway. So most of the giveaways that I tend to talk about are North American-based, and that's because Asus ACI is based out of North America. So we cover the United States and we cover Canada. But this one is a global one, so you have the opportunity to win quite a bit of actually hardware. So let me go ahead and again share that with you guys. You guys can see what it's all about. And pretty much all you got to do is just give us your guys' feedback regarding our graphics cards designs and things along those lines. So it's pretty straightforward. It's not complicated at all. So I will link this in the chat as well, but you can see right here, first place prize is going to be a RTX 3080 Ti Strix graphics card. Then we have a Tough Gaming 3060 Ti card, Z590-A motherboard. And then you can see right here, we've got some kind of secondary prizes where we've also got another 3060. We have a Thor PSU. That's this sweet, fully modular platinum PSU with that really cool screen that's on there, and or RGB lighting support as well, or our Ryujin 360 AIO cooler, which also has an OLED screen on there. So pretty cool. You can see 13 days left. Got all the corresponding link information right there. So pretty straightforward, guys. If you want the opportunity to pick up a sweet graphics card or any one of those sweet prizes, just make sure to go ahead and check it out. See any questions right there? All right, we're looking okay, guys. Okay, very cool. All right, and last but not least, I also did want to go touch on that. I know that we've got kind of a lot of questions regarding kind of people wondering about, hey, I'm looking to maybe upgrade, my monitor. I'm looking to maybe jump up from 1080p to maybe 1440p, so 2560 by 1440. And we have tons of 1440p monitors. We've got, high refresh rate, ultra high refresh rate. We have FreeSync, we have G-Sync, we have ones with the native G-Sync module in itself, ones with, ELMB, and then ones with ELMB Sync, IPS, VA, TN. There's a lot of different options that we have available. And so to try to make things a little bit easier for people at understanding kind of the wide range of options that we have gone ahead and opened up a dedicated, what we call landing page. It's a website that kind of consolidates the focus just on 1440p monitors. So hopefully will help you out to kind of understand if you're kind of looking for a monitor, helping to kind of look at these different models. So let me go ahead and show you what it's all about right here. You can see right here, kind of shows you can see we have direct links to definitely some of the most popular monitors that we're getting a lot of interest in right now, with models like the PG279QM or the XG27AQM or the Tough Gaming VG278Q. You can see a lot of kind of the features and functions that we have. Here's a really nice kind of comparative table, and then you can even view all the 1440p monitors that we have. But you can see it breaks things down like the panel type, the refresh rate, the response time, whether it has adaptive sync, the HDR level, I/O, features and functions, kind of elements like that. So hopefully that will be helpful to some of you guys. Okay. Any questions there? Looks like we're okay right there. So let me go ahead and keep moving things along. All right, cool. All right, so next up, I want to go ahead and now touch on the Noctua card, right? I think a lot of people have kind of been like, hey, what were you guys going to be doing here in terms of this when, kind of originally some of that information leaked out, and we're pretty excited about this. So again, this is something that I'll have a dedicated stream on this next week, which will kind of dive into all the specifics regarding kind of the card. But it's been pretty much a very long-term process that we've been working in collaboration with Noctua on, and we're excited about offering this card, where essentially we take their highest performing liquid crystal polymer fans, right, that Noctua are really known for in terms of the tone, the performance, the quality, and really all those amazing elements, and then integrate that in with, our Asus Auto Extreme production quality, our specialized heatsink design, which we also help to coordinate with them in terms of the design and the development, kind of bring that all together to really be able to offer you really the quietest card in its class. And so you get great build quality, cool and quiet operation, and faster performance than what you would have with a traditional FE-based card. So, like I said, not to take away from what I'm going to be doing in the follow-up stream next week, but, there's a lot of similarities here between kind of our Tough Gaming 3070 and this Noctua 3070 in terms of kind of the base kind of TGP or total board power. Is going to be higher than the FE card, so max 270 watts, very similar PCB and power topology, although there's a little bit of difference in terms of the capacitors that are used between the Tough Gaming card and the Noctua series card. It still also uses our max contact baseplate design, which is a really cool design implementation. When you kind of put all those things together, it really just allows for the card to be impressively quiet, while still offering a very high level of GPU boost performance. So you get outstanding kind of clock speed performance, but at extremely low acoustics, right? So it's pretty much almost essentially near silent. And on top of that, it still supports our 0 dB operating mode, which means that the card, when it's underneath a certain power requirement, essentially the fans will stop. So let me go ahead and just to kind of show off a couple of the images right here for you guys. I'm sure that probably most of you have seen it, but let me go ahead and bring it up for you guys, and we'll go from there. So here you guys can see the card. It's got, of course, the very distinctive design. And some of the cool things you may not realize is that the shroud right there, it actually has a different type of polymer composition, and we actually have gold flecks that are in the brown. So it gives it a kind of really cool, kind of, I think, subtle kind of premium feel to it, that when you look at it, it's not just straight brown, but there's these small little golden flecks that are actually built into that. So it's something that you'll subtly kind of notice, but it's a cool little, I think, touch that has. Here you can see a little bit of a side profile, and you can see just the massive size. We're talking about it. Previously, of course, the card was already large in terms of the heatsink assembly, and then you add in the additional, of course, height that you have from these 120 millimeter fans and with the shroud, and you're talking about 4.3 slot. Now, the one thing you want to keep in mind is that while this is a very large card, is that depending on where you're going to configure it, there may be additional kind of space that you can position the card in. If, let's say, you have bottom 120 millimeter fans, right? And this would be for more compact based chassis, where if potentially you were going to use that space, you would remove that space and essentially have the cards take up that space. So you could have a certain kind of chassis configuration that technically says maybe only 3 slot support, but it could potentially support the card because you would essentially remove those fans. But this is very dependent on the chassis configuration that you're kind of going with. We have already validated this with our own personal chassis, so models like the GT501, GT301, and the Helios, the GX601. And of course, I'm sure you guys will start seeing more people with it. It's got the vented backplate design, which of course you've seen pretty much all our current cards. This card does not have any RGB lighting, so it's not like our Tough Gaming graphics card or our RG Strix card or our KO cards. It doesn't have an ARGB header, and it doesn't have the Fan Connect 2 headers that are on the card. Some people have asked, does it have essentially the ability that you could kind of remove the fans and kind of replace them? Yes and no. It's not really designed to kind of be opened up in that regard. You can go ahead and open it. It's not too difficult, but we actually had to do a little bit of custom work in terms of the cable, in terms of how it connects into the card. And so the actual pin connection isn't going to be the same that you have with a traditional fan. Whereas in examples like right here, you guys can see that this right here, and I can go with a tighter shot, this is not the traditional header that you would have, let's say, quote unquote, on a card. Now, on our graphics cards that do feature Fan Connect 2 headers, they do actually have 4-pin fan headers on them, which are designed for kind of supplemental fan connections. You can't do that. So you would have to go through kind of a little bit of a modification to add in different fans and then get them wired into the card. Possible, for sure, from the modding community. I've seen things done like that, but it's not something by default, okay? So again, these are pretty much, outstanding industry-leading fans, though, so I wouldn't be kind of concerned with really trying to replace them because you're pretty much already getting best-in-class experience when it comes to them. But let me go ahead and actually show you something that you guys might not be aware of when it comes to the actual cards here. So one thing that's kind of cool here is going to be the max contact base plate. So we've talked about kind of a lot of the design work that we did help to kind of increase the overall surface area in terms of the dissipation. It's about a 20% roughly enlargement to align with what we did comparatively on the kind of the Tough Gaming card to kind of work with these fans right here. But the max contact base plate is a pretty cool design implementation. So if we take a look at the kind of exploded view design here, you'll see there is kind of the, of course, large heatsink assembly. It's got 5 heat pipes that are in there, right? But what I want to show you here is actually going to be the heatsink. So give me 1 second here, guys, and we'll kind of show you right here. Yeah. So you can just see how nice this looks. It's got a mirror finish to it, and that's because we actually go through a special machine finishing process for the max contact. So if we take a look at kind of like a traditional copper heatsink base, you'll actually see just how different they look, right? So here you can see you've got the copper heat pipes, and even if you were to have them directly actually covered with nickel as well, you would just be able to see that this is pretty much almost mirror finish. It's very similar to a kind of like a high quality water block, right? And then here you have the traditional design. So you get the max contact design along with the heatsink and then those premium fans. That's all what attributes to this really high level of performance. And if you actually even take a closer look, it's pretty impressive what we have there in terms of the overall kind of design. So let me go ahead and show you kind of 2 close-up looks in terms of a base plate here. So this would be kind of like a traditional plate that you would have in terms of the GPU. And then here you would have the max contact. And you can just see how much smoother the difference is between the two, right? So one's a standard and then one's the max contact. So you can definitely see that there's, even when you get really, really close up, there's quite a bit of a difference between the two. All right. And of course, for some of you that may be aware, all of our graphics cards are produced using what we call the auto extreme production process. And so that means that when all the kind of the components are getting placed on the graphics card, it's actually done through a robotic and SMT production process. So we were the first manufacturer to fully unilaterally do this across all of our graphics cards. So it doesn't matter what you're talking about, the most entry-level graphics card to our flagship series graphics cards. Every single one of our graphics cards is built using this process. It's the best process you can have in terms of consistency, accuracy, and reliability. And on top of that, there's also a validation mechanism in there so that we go through extensive analysis of actually looking at all the components once they've actually been placed on there. That also goes through the design work that we do in terms of the components that actually get picked and put on the graphics card as well. So this is all part of what we call the Asus Auto Extreme production process. And you kind of may be surprised that not necessarily every manufacturer utilizes something like SMT production. So you can still find, like in the very beginning of this clip, that there are, humans that are still placing those components on the board. And so I think it's a nice premium aspect that when you talk about you making an investment in a premium graphics card, that you have this type of advanced production process that's utilized for your graphics card. So that covers pretty much just a quick recap there on this brand new Noctua card. It'll be coming out in terms of channel availability a little bit later this month. And so definitely make sure to keep it tuned here, and we'll let you guys know once the card starts to come out. Hey, Connor. Yeah, thanks for that feedback. Noctua has been a partner with us for a long time, and we love working with them on a lot of different projects. And of course, we started or created including Noctua fans on some of our AIO coolers, like we have on the Ryujin series, both on the Ryujin 1 and also now on the Ryujin 2, and now with this collaboration. And so, we're definitely excited to see what the community thinks, and, we'd love to continue working with them in terms of kind of different exciting opportunities. So as always, you never know what we might have cooking down in terms of, for the future. But of course, you're tuned here to our social media channels. You'll definitely find out once we can announce them, right? All right, guys. Hey, cool. Hey, Mike, I haven't had the chance to actually try out the 2042 beta. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I'd love to know what your thoughts are as far as did you like the game? Oh, cool. Yeah, sounds like so far you're enjoying it, but definitely I would agree. It's a pretty demanding graphics engine, so definitely you're going to want to probably be at least on a kind of, I'd say, mid tier to a high-end 20 series card, if not, definitely a 30 series graphics card, if you're looking to be able to crank up those image quality settings, as long as definitely maintaining, the 60 to 120 FPS, if not better, right? Especially with a shooter-based game like that, where you want fast, fluid, and solid gameplay, but you still want to be able to crank up that, eye candy. I can definitely understand you definitely want a pretty solid graphics card. Thanks so much, man. I definitely agree, Mike. I'm biased, but I would definitely agree. We make some great cards. All right, guys. So that pretty much wraps up all the new stuff that I had to talk about, Windows 11 and the Noctua card. So let's get ready to go ahead and now kick off our Asus PCDIY Builder Spotlight. We've got some absolutely fantastic builds that people have submitted. So if you guys aren't aware what the PCDIY Builder Spotlight is all about, it's essentially where we get to showcase and talk about your guys' PC build. So whether you're talking about mini ITX, ATX, water-cooled to air-cooled, RGB to no RGB, it doesn't matter. I'd love to see your guys' build. So all you got to do is just be part of our group, submit them through the actual Google form, and then you get the opportunity to have them featured here on the PCDIY live stream. And we're also going to be opening up to hopefully having it featured on our PCDIY website in the not too distant future. So let's see what we've got here, guys. We've got definitely some cool builds. So go ahead and load up the first build here. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look first at, actually give me 1 second here, guys. Make sure that I get the submission forms up. Read through your guys' specific items. All right, great, I've got it right here. Okay. And here we go. All right. So first build is going to be from, I believe, the Tech Allen. So let's take a look here. And we load them up. That's going to be, where is it? It's called the Ultimate Dark Hero. So who can guess what motherboard that's based off of, right? I think that's a pretty explanatory motherboard, right? for those of you that may or may not know, our Crosshair series of motherboards. Let's go ahead and load these guys up here. All right, let's see what we've got here. I'm digging this already. I've got of course, we got the black from a lot of the chassis and from the motherboard. And then we've got some really cool kind of purple and orange vibes going on here. So I really like that. Of course, you can see this is a hardline water-cooled system. Some interesting choices in terms of the routing configuration. I'm always a little bit torn in terms of when I see hardline that covers some of the board. Because there's some really cool design aspects that we implement on the motherboard, but this all really depends on, of course, the look and feel that you want to define for your system. And so sometimes I think some builders, you want to have the actually focus be specifically on kind of the fluidity and the flow path, right, that you have for the kind of the hardline setup. And so under that situation, the actual hardware takes a little bit more of an accent kind of perspective than a forefront perspective, right? So it's a different type of vibe, but this is very nicely done. Of course, and the Tech Allen always has got really solid builds in terms of just really cleanly executed, nice attention to detail. He's got good color theory too, which is a really nice balance in terms of kind of evening things out here. I'm really digging this. I love how he's got some kind of like color blocking going on here. So that purple there on the top, we've got the orange down there on the bottom. And then we've even got that little bit of the blue gradient that's running there on the background on the dims. And then of course you have the black that there is kind of in that background, right? That overall looks really, really nice together. And of course you can see that distro plate there in the back area. And it looks like we didn't get to see a front shot, right? But I think that there's some illumination that he's got also right there on the front, which actually is kind of cool. I like that vibe there. What do you guys think? It's definitely a very cool looking build. Let me go ahead and leave it on this guy here while we go ahead and take a look through and see a little bit more from his submission form. So of course, definitely not the Tech Allen's first build here. Wasn't a sponsored build. Name of the system is called the Ultimate Dark Hero. 3 words to describe the system here is colorful, sleek, and powerful. So he's got a 5900X in here with a ROG Crosshair 8 Dark Hero board. It looks like it's going to be running 64 gigs of RAM here. Trident Z Neo, 4000 megahertz, so some pretty fast memory right there. An RTX 3090 graphics card, of course, water cooled. 2 1 terabyte NVMe drives plus an 8 terabyte mechanical hard drive. 1000 watt Prime Series power supply. He's running, of course, the 011, right? Of course, very popular chassis. And then speaking of Noctua, he's got 6 Noctua NF-F12 fans in there, the IPCs. Those are the same fans that we actually use on the Ryogen series coolers. And then Formula Mod custom PSU cables. Those look beautiful, go really nicely there. And then pretty much all the water cooling hardware is all from EK, including the Velocity AM4 CPU water block. So, and except for the radiator is from Hardware Labs. He's got the Black Nemesis on there. So sweet build. Total cost about $7,000 for this system. What is he most proud of? The overall kind of clean aesthetic and the color scheme. I definitely would agree. Very clean, really nice colors on this build. Anything that he would like to change is actually the GPU. So I wonder what he would be changing, especially considering that he's got a 3090 there. Took him about 1 week to build. It's impressive for this actually system. I think you've got, especially with this type of loop configuration and how clean it is, that's nice, man. Very well done. Predominantly uses it for gaming and for streaming and for general use. And his favorite features is dynamic OC switcher, which is on the Crosshair 8 Dark Hero, as well as on the Crosshair 8 Extreme, and now the X570-E Gaming 2, and Armory Crate for RGB lighting and control. Hey, Tech Allen, man, awesome build. Very, very, very nice, man. Kudos. All right, so let's take a look at our next system. So let me go ahead and get this one loaded up for you guys. And this system is going to be sound waved by overchilled PCs. Definitely a really cool looking system here. Oh, really cool. Yeah, I'm definitely digging this. So for a lot of users in the group, they definitely know that I'm not necessarily always the biggest fan of a vertical GPU mount. I definitely always prefer a horizontal mount, partially because I think that it takes away a lot from the visual design aesthetic of the motherboard, and you don't necessarily have the same depth and contrast between the top, the middle, and the bottom portion. And I think that sometimes the graphics card the design is going to be stronger on the horizontal side. Although I can definitely tell you, I've worked very closely with our team for years on making sure that the design for the graphics card is strong vertically and horizontally. But here, you can definitely tell that the focus is on having kind of this color theory and kind of a look and feel that aligns with the kind of theme that Overchilled was looking for, which is sound wave. And I definitely think that this hit the mark. So I think in this regard, the vertical really works well for this type of build and with this type of setup, even though personally, I prefer a horizontal based design. So you've got this kind of gray tones, the black, and then this really nice purple. I wouldn't say lavender. I would say it's definitely purple, but really, really nice color scheme that we've got going on here. You can still see a little bit of the board back there. Some very nice hardline bends that are in there too. A lot of credit, because sometimes you see a lot of kind of perpendicular lines when users are utilizing distro plates. For me personally, I find, just like in the previous with the Tech Allen's build, I like hardline most when there's a little bit kind of more fluidity and a little bit more kind of routing that occurs for the tubing. It's actually why I still personally prefer soft tubing over hardline tubing, but definitely really nice work that's done here. So here, of course, we've got the setup shot. Looks fantastic. Really, really, really cool. Really cool setup right there. Yeah, I mean, if you guys take a look at that, that just looks awesome right there. He's got, of course, with his LED lighting there on the back wall, a little bit of perimeter lighting in the back of the desk, and then, of course, the system right there to the side. Looking really, really nice. This kind of gradient that we've got here with the white, the purples, and the blues, really, really looks fantastic. Definitely, man, thumbs up, man. Thumbs up. Very, very, very cool. Yeah, I love that color scheme. I think it looks fantastic. And the setup and balance that you have there, right there, I think in terms of giving yourself like kind of that brighter white to give you a little bit of kind of contrast and pop, works really, really well with a little bit of the darker tones that you have there with kind of the purple and, of course, the black that you have throughout the rest of the system. So that's a beautiful looking system, man. Very, very cool. Very nicely done. So this was actually, let me see right here. Yeah, Soundwave is the name of the system. 3 words to describe the build: purple, deceptions, and water cooled. Okay, definitely I can see where you're going with there. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of kind of the hardware configuration. Oh, he's got a really cool picture right here on his build GG link here, guys. I might bring that one up here. So give me 1 second. But let me go ahead and just see. So total cost of the system, $4,700. I'm really happy with how things came out in terms of the clean lines for the tubing. I definitely agree, especially that really nice tubing run that he has coming around the graphics card. Really, really nice. The theme, of course, is Transformers Soundwave. Is there anything that you would change about the system or about the build? 3 more fans to essentially have it as a push-pull on the top. I don't know if you need that, but I think maybe if he wants it from an aesthetic perspective, I think it looks great. About 2 months to complete the build, predominantly used for pretty much everything: gaming, accounting, multimedia. Gaming, he's doing Call of Duty, Ace Combat 7, Halo, Master Chief Collection, and I'm sure probably other things right there. His favorite aspect from Asus is that it can sync with Corsair in terms of IQ coordination, right? That we have Armory Crate can work with IQ, although do keep in mind that there are potentially some update items that you want to keep in mind if you do pair those 2 pieces of software together. Overall, really, really nice build, man. Fantastic work. Let me go ahead and see here if I can share over your builds.gg here. That's got some pretty cool stuff here too from the setup perspective. So give me 1 second here. Yeah. And give me 1 second. I will go ahead and share this. Let me get this one up here. Okay. Yeah, here we go. I thought this was pretty cool, guys. So there you guys can see it's pretty cool because he's got right here, he's got the unit little right next to the system, looking really, really nice. Just kind of some additional shots here. Really, really nice work. And again, that's where you can see, again, here we've got those hard lines coming there at the top, then how they come out here underneath. Really, really nice work so that you get that clean, unobstructed look. That does take a lot of work. And here you can see that nice job in terms of just having the different color play that you've got going on. Really cool looking system, man. That's very, very nice. Yeah. Kudos, man. Fantastic build, man. Very nice work. All right. Let's go ahead and check out our next build. Let's see who we've got next up here. Next is going to be Greg. And Greg, I think, actually has a Gundam-based themed build. So those are always pretty fun, man. If I remember it, I think it was over here. Yeah, the white base. So let's go ahead and throw this guy up here. And we'll take a look. So this was actually also Greg's first build, man. So kudos on getting your first build up and running, man. That's always kind of a really big deal. You know, hopefully you have a really good sense of accomplishment once you hit that power on button and you get everything up and running. So here we've got a little bit of side shot. We can see that we've got it in the Helios, the G601. This looks like that's the Gundam Edition version of the chassis right here. He also looks like he was able to pick up the actual Gundam AIO cooler that he's got in there. And I think maybe there's a Thor that's in there. Let's go ahead and just keep looking through the photos here. A little bit of a top-down shot. Oh, he was able to actually pick up the Gundam keyboard. He was able to pick up the Gundam mouse. Looks like the monitor and the headset and the throne. You must be a serious Gundam fan, man. But this was really one of my absolute favorite collaborations I've ever seen from a hardware design perspective. I absolutely love the color design. I love the work that we did with them in terms of kind of integrating their IP into the hardware designs. I thought it came through really, really nicely. Oh, you even got the impact mouse there too. That's pretty sweet. Oh yeah, and it looks like you also picked up the actual power supply. You were able to pick up the power supply, and that's a lot of work. And it even looks like you also picked up the actual Gundam RTX graphics card too. So man, you got really lucky. You definitely put in the work to try to pick up those things. Looks like you got the streamer cables as well for RGB lighting. That's a pretty cool accent there too. Yeah, here you guys can see the kind of side shot of everything. The only thing that I might say is I might actually flip the AIO, so I might rotate it to actually have the cables coming to the right-hand side as opposed to onto the left-hand side. I think you could swoop that underneath the way that the streamer cables that you have set up, and that way you get a little bit better visibility on the left-hand side right here for the shroud for the motherboard. But otherwise, looks really good. Looks overall clean, well executed. And they're cool. Yeah, you've got it all set up there with the monitor and mouse and the lighting. That's really nicely done. And you guys can't see it a little bit here because of the way you took the picture with the flash, but you've got that really nice RGB lighting, which also shows the actual Gundam mech in the front of the chassis, which is RGB illuminated. So I bet you this looks really sweet in person and during the night. Yeah, it's a pretty cool setup, man. Oh, thanks for including the lighting. Excuse me, for your cable routing. And there's a good amount of cables you got in there, pretty good. I mean, you got a lot of room there in the G601, so it's not like you have to super clean this up. I might break out some of these a little bit to make them just a little bit easier in terms of knowing which cables were going to kind of which specific items, because you do have enough room to do it in there. But overall, you can't see any of this. It's there in the back and it works. So still, man, kudos to you there. And again, for your first build, it's actually pretty reasonable there. So overall, man, thumbs up, solid build. Cool setup. It's definitely, I think, one of my favorite setups in terms of thematic elements, because of course they all were designed to go together. So very, very cool, man. So best of luck to you with your build, man. Very cool, Greg. Let's go ahead and see what we'll leave it on right here. And leave it on some RGB lighting right here. White base, clean, custom, costly. He's got an 11900K in there, and of course all the Gundam series hardware. So Z590 Gundam board, the Gundam LC360 cooler. He's got Trident Royal Z memory that's in there, 3600 megahertz and CL14, so some really fast memory. He got the 3090 Gundam Edition card, 1200 watt power supply that he actually got painted. Oh, so he actually got the Thor. Yeah, so I was wondering because the part I was like, wait, when I saw the screen, I was a little bit confused. So this is modded right here. So he actually got a Thor and modded it. He painted it white. So that's how you know that he's a serious fan. An SN850 along with a rocket 4 terabyte. It's got the Delta, the Throne, the XG279Q Gundam Edition monitor, of course, the strict scope Gundam keyboard and mouse setup, the sheath, right, and then the streamer cables, and of course the Helios. So all together, $6,500 for his total system setup. He's most proud of the Strix 3090 card and the Thor 1200 watt power supply, which customized. Of course, Gundam is the theme. Anything that he would maybe consider changing is he might actually consider changing the CPU, but I would say 11900K, especially if you got that guy overclocked, man, you got a beastly level of performance in that CPU. 2 days to overall kind of complete the build, and pretty much uses it for gaming. So Battlefield is pretty much what he does. He also does actually design work on the system. Okay. And he loves the fact that he likes the wireless charging support that's on the throne and the headphones, and just kind of checking out the display and the overclocked nature of the kind of system and the setup. Overall, very cool, man. Kudos, man. Cool build. Hey, Gameaholic, I definitely agree. I would love to see a 40K collab. I've long pitched that one. I'm a massive 40K fan. I absolutely love 40K. I feel one of the actual best IPs out there in terms of story, character design, and so many elements. And there's so many cool different, quote unquote factions and different, environments you could go with. And talk about chaos, whether you do, of course, Eldar, whether you do Space Marines, whether you do Chaos, you get into, Neural, you get into Crom. There's so many really, really cool, really interesting, design elements into it. And of course that space tech, but of course with that edginess that it has to it. Absolutely, really, really, really cool. I'd love to see something done for 40K. So, cool recommendation. Don't know if it's going to happen, but always be interesting to see what we have. And definitely, I can tell you that we've got more IP collaborations coming down in the future. So as always, make sure to keep it tuned here and to see what we're coming out with. Right. So next up here, let's see what our next build is going to be. Next build is from Mainframe Customs. And this is the mainframe. Oh, I remember this one. This is a masterclass. This is absolutely just beautiful build right here. So prepare to be blown away, guys. Just take a look at this. Yeah. I mean, this is a serious system right here. All right. Let's go ahead and take a look here. Beautiful. I mean, right off the bat, you've got that really beautiful pastel blue. You have those really, really nice kind of silver accents that are present because of the chassis that work perfectly with the blue. Then you've got a little bit of gray undertones that are in there, and just how that all kind of ties in together. And it's got this soft, kind of cool tech feel to it, and just has this really, really impressive vibe to it. And of course, just the layout is also a little bit different. It doesn't necessarily have these perpendicular lines. You've actually got some depth and some contrast, which I really like, with the tubing actually coming out of the system. So you're playing around with some depth and dimension. So that's really, really cool. Of course, that massive distribution plate that you have in there that has everything wired in there, beautiful. And that in itself looks fantastic. And then this really cool angled shot right there. And again, this is where I talk about that I really love the play in terms of depth and dimension, because the card is still mounted horizontally, right? You can still see what's going on here, but really, really, really cool. Love this shot too, because you can also see the work that's done here in terms of these really, really nice bends. They're hard, especially these trickier ones that are tight, but they're very smooth. They're radial in nature. Really, really nice. So let's go ahead and go back out here, and let's take a look through and find out a little bit more about David's build right here from Mainframe Customs. So the name of the system is the Mainframe, modern, stylish, and clean. It is using the Singularity Computers Spectre 3 chassis. Of course, if you guys don't know about Singularity Computers, amazing guys that do just amazing work when it comes to, of course, water cooling. And they, of course, have started to release their own kind of customized line of water cooling hardware that's really focused at kind of, I think, evolving kind of the functionality, usability, and kind of design elements. Here is definitely rocking a very high-end based hardware configuration. This is using the Zenith 2 Extreme Extreme board, the Extreme Alpha. So that's the later version of it. So this is a Threadripper based platform. So you're really talking a massive number of cores and threads, memory, PCI Express lanes right here. This is pretty much a super high-end system, right? Because we're talking about high-end enthusiast desktop. So this is a 3970 Threadripper. He's got a Strix 3090 card that's in there, 64 gigabytes of memory that's installed, all powered from 1200 watt power supply, two 1 terabyte 980 Pro SSDs that are in there, along with a 500 gigabyte SSD that's in there as well. It looks like Mainframe Customs, Telios silver sleeving. Those cables look absolutely beautiful, man. Fantastic. I really, really love those way those look. And then all the water cooling hardware pretty much is all EK. So water cooling blocks, right? So he's got, of course, the Momentum, the blocks that are used for the actual GPU. Radiators are also going to be EK. Then he's got, of course, pump that's there from EK2. And then, of course, all the corresponding fittings, Vadar-based fans in there as well. And then the Azure Blue for that EK cryo fuel. So ultimately, just beautiful system and a masterclass in building, man. Looks fantastic. He's most proud of the color scheme. The silver case and the nickel components just looked great with the blue coolant, and I 100% agree. I think it looks great. Is there anything that you would change about the build? One or two tubing runs, but overall, you know, he's not super concerned with it, but just kind of the way things are changed up. He didn't have the flexibility to kind of changing the way that they could be routed just because of the way the chassis is set up. But overall, I think it still looks fantastic. So took him about a month or so to get this completed. System is predominantly used as workstation for photo and video work, for gaming when he has the time, and not necessarily always. His favorite games: Gears of War series, Mass Effect series, Cyberpunk, Metro 2033, World of Tanks, Red Dead Redemption, and RTS games. Hey, are you interested about Call of Duty? Company Heroes? Company Heroes, man. What about Age of Empires 4? Are you going to be playing Age of Empires 4? Favorite Asus feature is the quality in terms of just our feature set and functionality and the overall quality of our components, man. So fantastic, man. Kudos on this build. It's a stunning job. Hey, Danny. Hey, thanks for joining the stream, man. Happy to have you here, man. Happy Friday. Hey, Ellie. Is that not sure exactly how to pronounce your username, but looks like you got a Zephyrus G15 to a Ryzen 9 5900S and an RTX 3070. That's a beastly system. Yeah, the Zephyrus G15 models, those are serious laptops. So definitely, while you know our focus here on the stream is all about PCDIY systems, that's a very impressive system, and it's an awesome notebook. I mean, when you talk about just the performance you can get in something like that, it's really, really cool, man. So thanks for being part of Team ROG, man, and definitely best of luck with your laptop. And thanks for joining the stream, man. So we've got a couple I think just a couple of builds left here before we wrap things up, guys. So let me go ahead and get ready to jump into our next build here. And I think this is from Justin. Justin was happy that I said, don't worry about some of our photo requirements and just submit over whatever dimensions you want. And he definitely sent me over some stunning photos of his work. And Justin does absolutely just fantastic builds. One of my favorite builders in terms of seeing what he brings to the table. So let's go ahead and take a look here. Oh yeah, this is already going to look really, really cool, I'm sure. So here we go. So this is going to be Project DT from Justin 2. And 3 words to describe the build: high-end automobile is what he was looking for here. And let me go ahead and see right here. So this is going to be in a Cosmos C700M, which was painted and hydro dipped along with actually automotive grade vinyl that he's got on there. And this is all utilizing our Z590 Maximus Extreme Glacial motherboard, which was a special collaborative design with EK where it features an Uber block. So full coverage motherboard in a quote unquote block, right, for water cooling. And 11900K, Strix 3090 OC, 64 gigabytes of memory, 8 terabyte M.2 SSD, along with 3 980 M.2 SSDs, and then 12 terabyte Iron Wolf mechanical SSDs, a Thor 1200 watt PSU, and then Lanley 120 and 140 millimeter fans. And then is the loop is pretty much all EK there. So let's take a closer look at this, man. Oh, thanks. It's Alf. Okay, thanks, man, so much for confirming your username there. Wow, this is just beautiful work right here, and you can definitely see the work that he did there. So, you know, that's the biggest credit I can give to builders is that when your work looks like it's shipped that way from the factory, that's what we definitely see here, and the kind of the attention to detail to really be able to execute what he's done there with the hydro dipping and the vinyl and all that customization to be able to kind of fit a specific kind of theme and kind of look and feel, I think is just really, really well done. And it's just got an extraordinarily high level of polish, man. So kudos. That's a beautiful shot there. And really has a kind of distinctive nature to the design. I'm a fan of chassis that have a strong identity and kind of don't necessarily always look exactly the same from a square perspective. So it's cool to be able to see that we've got that here. I love these just, I would say, conscious decisions made on the tubing being bended and angled and kind of routed in a specific way. Sometimes you don't have to go straight. Just going with something gives you a little bit of kind of just visual kind of breakup that adds to a feel that you're trying to have. And I think even with kind of the automotive perspective that he has, sometimes those layouts don't necessarily always seem symmetrical, right? It's more kind of the feeling that they establish. And that's definitely what he did right here. And it looks fantastic. You can see that memory down there at the bottom, the landing fins at the top, of course, all the beautiful fittings there that we've got from EK. This is just gorgeous. And then you can see, of course, the DIM.2 card there from the Extreme Glacial board, which is where you can have some of those SSDs. That integration right there in terms of the hardline. Oh yeah, this is great. Yeah, and you can see, of course, that's where the board is, and it's a little bit tricky to kind of see the board because the board's color kind of becomes part of the entirety of the feel of the system, which is kind of cool, right? It's got just a different vibe to it. I really love the contrast in color that we've got here. The black with kind of the satin nickel, then kind of this little bit of the white, and then you got the soft accent lighting. I think it's just really, really well done here. Oh, and then we just got Project GT there on the side. It's a stunning build, man. Absolutely just stunning build. Fantastic. Let's go ahead and take a look here. Give me 1 second. Okay, and so there's no budget that was defined for the build. So I think you guys can all tell, though, it's a pretty expensive system right here. What aspect was he most proud of? The small details that no one will see, such as the leather behind the motherboard tray. That's, man, just thumbs up, man. Just that type of diligence in terms of just really defining something that you yourself know, but you appreciate in terms of kind of just really being able to give you a look and feel. That's awesome. And that's the type of stuff that I always find super interesting to see from, I think, the best builders in the game. And definitely from the work that I've seen you done, you definitely are up there, man. So fantastic. Really, really cool to see. Does the builds have a theme? A high-end luxury GT cars, hence the leather, wood over the PSU cover, and the tubes are bent to have the look of header pipes. So again, that's actually what I was talking about, right? There is a subtle kind of design and kind of focus to really have kind of a look and feel, right, that conveys things that you may not even necessarily correlate or connect to, but that do help to connect and convey those things. Is there anything that he would redo? He would redo the hydro dipping on all the plastic parts, but perhaps a better carbon fiber pattern if available. I still look at looks fantastic, but I could definitely understand that probably if you looked super close at some of those things, maybe there might be a little bit of bubbling, or maybe that the carbon fiber kind of hatching doesn't look as kind of crisp or as kind of solid as you wanted to. And those are kind of little things that I'm sure somebody like you, who I would probably say is definitely in that OCD category, or definitely has a passion and affinity for kind of a real premium element, then you want to kind of just want to keep evolving it and refining it, right? 2 months to complete this build. Daily use, he's pretty much using the system for until he completes his Crosshair 8 Extreme system. That's pretty awesome considering you've already got the peak of really Intel with the Maximus 13 Extreme Glacial, right? And you're also going to do a Crosshair 8 Extreme build. That's just crazy, right? Absolutely. And his favorite feature of Asus motherboards is our UEFI firmware, the BIOS. I would 100% agree with you. I've long been a fan of that, and the time and effort that we've worked, especially I think for features and functions, I've helped to talk to our team on getting implemented, and work that we're going to continue doing for, I think, the next generation is really exciting as well, man. So thank you to find out that you've appreciated those things. I think that I've got here a little bit of a clip that he shared. So let me see if I can load this one up here really quick. Give me 1 second, guys. Let me see if I got that here. Yeah, it looks like it downloaded okay. Yeah, and let me go ahead and load this up for you guys. You guys can check it out. It's pretty cool. He shared a little bit of a video piece that he's got right here. Let's go ahead and take a look here. Actually, with the audio. Beautiful B-roll, man. Really nicely done. Oh, I love, yeah, that subtle white lighting that you can see here in the video, even better in the photos. You add that in within the gray, then the black, and then of course the silver tones, and then even the white accent. It's really beautifully done. I almost wish that I could actually see that leather that you're talking about now, because I think actually like a little bit of that brown would look beautiful with the rest of this. And then that satin nickel looks fantastic. But I really like that you went with the white there. And I love that look right there on the glacial, where you can see just a little bit of that illumination on the inside of the Uber block. Fantastic, man. That's beautiful. That was pretty slick, man. Yeah, definite thumbs up for me, man. Fantastic build, man. Kudos. Really, really nice work. And I think that probably almost wraps up. Let me see. I think we've got one more build. White base. Yeah, actually, no. Hold on, guys. Yeah, we still got one left here. So let's go ahead and keep moving this along here. We've got, another, yeah, this was actually a really cool build too. This was a heavy mod, a lot of custom work here. This is going to be from DDC Custom Mods. So this is pretty cool. This is going to be a desk mod. So if you guys aren't kind of familiar with desk mods, they're kind of really interesting and different because their kind of focus is building a system inside of a desk, right? And so it's got definitely a really cool, interesting design aesthetic to it. So here you can see the render for the system, kind of what was the goal. So you can see it's got kind of that top table portion, then it angles down, and then you've got the system inside of there. And you got a little bit of the logo there for of course, the mod, right? So DDCM. And there you can see DDCM custom mods right there. And there you can see, of course, all the fans. You've got the pump in the reservoir. I can definitely tell you already that's a Sabertooth motherboard that we've got in there. That's cool. And this is actually modded because we never made a red Sabertooth board. So he actually painted the heat sinks in this. And there you can see actually lit up. That's cool. That's actually got a really kind of interesting vibe right there. So you've got a little bit of that halo lighting in the back of the system where probably you got some type of LED strip. And then you've got that integrated lighting right down there at the bottom. It's got kind of like this little bit of a kind of sub feel to it that's just there, that's kind of glowing. That's kind of cool, but there's something that's inside of there, almost kind of like an aquarium kind of feel, but not aquarium. It's cool. Oh, this is interesting. So here you can actually take a look kind of in the dark versus where you actually have it lit. And I like that black color scheme right there. That's cool too. Interesting. Yeah, you can definitely see that. I feel maybe that LED right there is a little bit bright for me. Like, I feel like if it could just be streamed out a little bit to maybe be a little bit more kind of angled, maybe up and down a little bit more, that might kind of, I think, be a little bit stronger. But overall, still very cool looking. Oh, it's cool. He's got some readout display there for some certain values. I'm not sure whether it's maybe temperature or whether, maybe flow or different kind of values right there for the system in the front, but that's cool. He's got that tied in there. Oh, yeah. And then, of course, you got the red fluid, and you can see definitely that red work as far as the customizations that went into the motherboard. Very, very cool, man. That's a cool modded system. Let's go ahead and take a look here and see what we've got in terms of your system. So James, man, kudos for this build. Very cool. 3 words to describe the system: unique, simple, and powerful. let's take a look here around what's the kind of the base of the hardware. So yeah, I was right. It's a Sabertooth 990FX board. This is running an older FX series CPU and 8350 Alpha Cool block XPX that we've got in there. It's got some G.Skill memory, 16 gigabytes, 2 terabyte mechanical hard drive, and then we've got a 256 gigabyte SSD in there. You've got a GTX 980, and then that custom-made, of course, PC cabinet, 900 watt power supply, and then we've got in-win Aura fans that are going to be cooling the system right there. He's most proud of the handmade custom pine desk and enclosure. I would definitely agree. Of course, that probably took you a huge amount of time and work and effort. Red and black theme. He'd like to have a little bit longer cable extensions and better draining ability. I'm interested. It's like, did you have like maybe some integrated like drain ports or anything like that? You know, that's always, of course, one of the things that you want to hopefully have when you have a custom water cooled system is an easy way to be able to drain the system. Took him about 2 years intermittently in terms of just kind of weekends in terms of doing most of this, but from concept to completion. Uses it for gaming, Minecraft, Overwatch, RimWorld, digital graphics, video rendering. And overall, he's just a huge fan of the Tough line of a series of products. We no longer make the Tough line specifically. We've transitioned over to Tough Gaming, but awesome to still be able to see a cool build and mod like this, man. So overall, kudos, man. Very, very cool work, man. And definitely kudos to you in terms of the time and effort that you put into it. Hey, Andreas. Happy to have you here, man. Yeah, you're a little bit late. We're just wrapping things up. We've got one last build right here. We had some absolutely stunning builds that we just finished going through. But, as always, man, happy to have you here, man. So thanks for joining, man. It's always appreciated. So let's go ahead and wrap things up with our very last build for you guys. This one is a very cool mod type build, console PC mod, I guess would be maybe the way to phrase this guy. Pretty interesting. This is an Xbox small form factor system built by Andrew, and it's pretty cool what he did right here. So we're taking it back old school, original Xbox that he gutted, and he essentially built his system into this. So let's go ahead and take a look right here. So wrong picture to start with, but that's okay. You can see right there, we've got the graphics card display output, but there we can see it opened up, right? We can see already we've got water cooling in here. We've got Noctua fans in here. We've got a lot of this custom cables that are, of course, in there. But there you can see, that's the system, right? But it is not a console. It's definitely a PC. So let me go ahead and actually back this up quickly. Give me 1 second here. There you can see, of course, the water block for the GPU. You can see a little bit more example here of the front. Then you can see how it's all mounted in there. That's pretty crazy, man. So I'm assuming probably one of these, yeah, you can see that's the pump. Yeah, that's the pump. Then you go into the water block. Then you got some tubing that goes into there. You got the GPU. It's all tied in together. Man, that's a lot of work to get that all crammed inside there. And of course, this is all on a mini ITX based motherboard, because of course we wouldn't be able to fit anything else in there. Yeah, there you can see there's the motherboard, of course, with the block that's on there. And there's the rear shot. Man, that's pretty crazy. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I'd love to know what was kind of your rationale behind wanting to build something like this in such a specific chassis. But it's pretty cool because, like, most people would just assume that's an older console, and you've totally got this cool, pretty high-end mini gaming PC and running inside of it, right? Let me go ahead and let me see here and check here. This is, sorry, which build is this? Yeah, this is by Andrew Spears. So let me just go ahead and bring up his submission form here. Okay, here we go. We've got it. So what was he looking for here? So a quiet, sleeper, and difficult. I would definitely agree. This is running Intel Core i5 10400 on a B460i motherboard. It's got 32 gigabytes of memory on there. It's a RTX 3060 It's running a specialized 400 watt PSU. And then he's got a Samsung 980 M.2 SSD that's in there. Then he's got, of course, a lot of those Noctua fans that are in there, specialized, of course, A4 series fans. And then it's pretty much alpha cool hardware that he's got in there with the Nexus set up for the right radiator, left radiator, GPU block, and CPU block, which, of course, the GPU block and the CPU block have that integrated pump-based design, which was it allows for kind of the compact integration and then the minimal routing points in terms of the tubing. And then the front I/O has been customized, right, for the power button and the LED function. And he's got 2 USB 3 ports and then 2 USB 2 ports. What was the budget? He just started ordering stuff as far as kind of getting this all together. He spent about probably $2,500. He's most proud that he's got a fully water-cooled system there that actually really does look like an original Xbox, because when you put that shell on it, you pretty much think it's just an original Xbox. It doesn't have a theme, but I think it has a theme. Is there anything that you would change about it? He says a lot, but honestly, he didn't have a lot of spare parts or tools available to him. But overall, man, I give you a huge thumbs up. You get 2 thumbs up for me. And working in such a compact system, to be able to get that all in running and be able to have something that's usable, it's cool, it's fun, and it give you a lot of respect, man. So kudos, man. Took him about 75 days to build the system. He uses it kind of like as an HTPC for his bedroom, and it replaced his computer. That I guess he runs some gaming on, maybe does some emulation that's on there. And integrated rear I/O shield is his favorite feature that he likes on current Asus boards. So very cool. Overall, Andrew, man, that's a really sweet build, a cool level of functionality that you were able to get into such a small kind of system. It's pretty sweet, man. And it's cool way to kind of see you kind of bridge between, you know, the PC and the console. So overall, man, very cool work. And that wraps up our PCDIY Builder Spotlight, guys. So thank you guys so much for checking out today's stream. Again, if you guys are interested in finding about the latest and greatest that Asus is working on when it comes to PC hardware, make sure to check us out and join us inside of our PCDIY group. It's linked in the description. If you guys have any other questions, comments, or anything like that, feel free to go ahead and drop them, whether you're checking us out on Facebook and YouTube, and I'll do my best to go ahead and follow up with you guys when I can there. But with that, guys, take care, take it easy, enjoy the rest of your guys' Friday, and have a great weekend. Stay safe and stay healthy. Oh, fantastic, man. Oh, Andrew, hey, thanks for joining, man. Fantastic job. Coming out with a V2, definitely, I'm looking forward to it, man, and definitely make sure to submit it, man. I'd love to feature it again here on the actual